Hello and welcome back to Bluebell Railway. This video is the March 2023 layout update. So hopefully some of this surface mix I put on is a little bit convincing. I'll go lower down. So it's not going to look exactly realistic, but it looks like there's something there at least. And if I have any pieces of track in the future that have problems, it's easier just to lift them up than having to worry about deballasting and then lifting them up. This is it's obviously a new locomotive that's only just come out. I was waiting for this one since it was announced by Bachmann in the most recent announcements, that being the War Department 280. 77196 was built in 1943, and so my layout being 1943, 1944, it's pretty much perfect as a War Department heavy goods engine. It looks the part. It is a shame that there's no tender pickups, despite wires going into the tender, but otherwise it's a really nice engine. Looks the part, runs the part. It's quite smart. I wouldn't call it beautiful, but it is a very good engine, very good looking engine, very well proportioned as well. So the 280 wheel set is actually quite nice. I don't think there is anything Southern which was a 280. There were 080 tank engines that worked in the docks, but there wasn't really 280. And then we'll get some running shots of her pulling, well, what is for an 8F, a small goods rake. But most important thing is the layout. So I'm going to move around to each area and I'll show what I've done. So let's get to it. So starting off with the anti-aircraft gun position, the second anti-aircraft gun position next to the bigger shed. It's looking a little bit empty because I've moved some of the engines around and 473 is out at a red signal at the moment. So I want to try and add some more bushes to this area and some more sand to make it look like dirt on the side from where some of the paint is, but just add a bit of texture. I've painted this area in the same Wilco coastline, I think it's called, tester pot emulsion, as I've done on this side, so it looks like it's all one hillside that's been carved out to have this shed in. It does look, I feel, quite a bit better for it. And then up here, I need some more people, mainly army, so they'd be working as the anti-aircraft gun crew. And just for now, I've got the armoured command vehicle and General Montgomery's staff car to use as a officer's vehicle for the officer who is pointing, talking to no one because they haven't arrived yet. Because PICO haven't brought back the army personnel figures or navy. I can get RAF ones, but I don't need any more of them. There's a tree stump, so I'll give the look that maybe before the war this was forested or woody. And then there's these telephone poles, the cheapy Hornby ones, that they add a bit of height and a bit something extra. And this tree is also recent addition. I need to blend the base in because it stands out. But I think that's a bit more effective with the telephone masts there. Even if not perfectly straight, they are still an extra dimension. Some piles of what might be sort of plants which are cut back so that the anti-aircraft composition remains as clear as possible, and then just dumped. When I get some wildlife, things like badger, so there's a set of what I'm looking at which has got a badger in it, as well as a hedgehog and some few birds. So probably put them around this area and along the back, sort of long but low hill. The bigger tree doesn't interfere with the anti-aircraft gun, otherwise if it was bigger it wouldn't be here, because it would have been cut back. Don't know where it's from, I just sort of had it in a box of bits. Some of the smaller Javis trees that I need to blend in the bases for, because the Javis trees do have quite prominent bases. They're quite reasonably priced, but the bases are a problem. I've got this mound here, which is just a mound. I'm not entirely sure what it would have been in real life, but it's a mound. It's a bit extra something, so it's not completely flat here. And so I might put like a bird on top of it or something. I'll have to have a think. What I'll do now is I'll move on to the next area, which is the area which runs alongside the King Arthur shed. And so this is the long but low hill which runs alongside, I'll call it the King Arthur shed, but I've moved 695 here because it's nice to have a goods engine sort of on the inner loop as well, which is easy to get out. I don't have to faff around. I can just open up the points, reverse her out, and then off she goes. So it's almost like LSWR sheds. And in there is 750 and 742. Along the back, there's a lot of the chestnut type trees, which are these ones. They're marked as, the bigger ones are marked as chestnut on the JVS site, so that's what they are. I might add one or two more trees. Can't add anything too big, because anything too big, height-wise, will interfere with the anti-aircraft guns, and it would have been cut back when they were put in. Sort of a continuation of the, still going to call them King Arthur sheds, but King Arthur shed continuations. I've put in the Nissan huts. These are the Metcalf ones, and some Pico benches, a Pico sort of lamp post, mixed Pico and Bachmann figures. Hopefully, it looks somewhat convincing. I do need to touch up a few areas and sort of blend it in a little bit better, and sort of have the edge a bit more flush with the board, but it looks alright. There's another telephone pole, which is again another cheapy Hornby one, and it's sort of as suggesting it maybe connects to this signal box and maybe to this telephone box, although there is, I didn't realise this till later, but this might be a bit risky depending on how the wires are going into this. Putting your post in might be a bit dangerous. But it's a model railway, it's not real life, so a few little things like that aren't going to kill anyone. These trees I've put here, these bigger trees, they're quite effective at breaking up the loco a bit and the trains a bit, especially coupled with my road bridge, as I'm still sort of in this area. Continuation along from this scene, it does get a little bit flat here, but then it sort of has a small hill, very small hill with some smaller Javis trees that need to blend in the bases of a little bit. These trees which I had laying around in a box of bits. So the dirt road that's a complete dirt road now, it goes all the way through. This also was in a box of bits. There's lots of stuff I had laying around in a box of bits that I went through, and then I put it almost as sort of like a shelter for sort of vehicles which may be linked to this sort of makeshift medical facility, where I've got the Royal Navy Jeep, the Army armoured car, I think is a Dingo, parked nice and neatly. The Americans have just chucked it in sideways, so you just come in and boop, and you can't get anything else in there now because the Americans have parked very well. So moving around out of the brilliant American parking, I'd like to get some more bigger trees, I think, for along the track side, because it helps break up the train so well. So as it comes into here, sort of train comes past this way on the outer loop or that way on the inner loop, it then gets broken up a bit heading into here, because this is my only actual scenic break on the layout, unless you count a small train being obstructed by the after sheds or shed. Then you can probably see where I'm going to go to next. I'm going to go to what is the biggest hill on the layout next. So this is the biggest hill. It is the one that I've crashed the Messerschmitt into, and the one which is sort of the area which is being pointed at by various officers. And there's no big trees at all on here, because again, there's an anti-aircraft gun position. And so, to make sure nothing obstructs it, there are no big trees. It's a bit out in the open, it's not very well camouflaged. However, it's got better sort of angle and can actually hit its targets. But there are some smaller trees which are starting to sprout up. So there's quite a few people. They're a bit of a pain in the neck to put in, because I had to lean right over and stick them on. In terms of construction, this main bit, which is almost like the backbone of it, is laminated corrugated cardboard with the rocket car glue, sticking it together to get it up to it is up to just below it, this sheet of Javis grass mat high, so it is that much cardboard in it. I'll bring an engine along in a bit and you can see the sort of how tall it is. And then it's packing paper, newspaper and craft paper to make the landform, and then it's newspaper on the top, so sort of PVA glue and brown paint, and on top of that PVA glue and then scatters and brushes gone in. Most of the newspaper is actually Japanese newspaper, which I got ordering items for the N-gauge layout coming from Japan, wrapped up in newspaper. So rather than me having to go out and buy it, which I was not looking forward to, because I don't really see the point in newspapers so much. I've got the free paper. Did the job. So it looks like a big hill. Lots of the plant life which would have been here have been stripped away by the Messerschmitt coming in on the sort of the hard impact. Well, it's remarkably intact, but I didn't want to break it too much because the rose tinted glasses, because I did make it when I was a kid, but there's a bit of nostalgia. Got the crash tenders there, just in case it would have caught fire. And there are bombs on the bottom of the plane. I don't know how well they come out. There are bombs on the bottom of the plane. The number on the site is damaged. That's because it's an old model that I made over a decade ago, I think, at this point. Probably over 15 years. And some more, another box of bits item is your whistle sign. I need to get another one for the inner loop somewhere. There's no point having it here because the engine will whistle as it pulls out. So it might make more sense to put it maybe going into this junction. And I need to tidy up sort of the stone scatter, particularly around here, even though when it's at an angle it's not too noticeable and it looks convincing enough. Wants to focus, there we go. It looks convincing enough. It looks like there's something there. Point motors, as well as more wildlife and more people are needed for pretty much all the points except for the one just on the other side of the crossing, and the two which are obscured by these trains, because I can access these from my sort of operating side of the layout quite easily. I can't reach that one from when I'm working in the middle, but I'd set it before I went under. But those ones I can access. All the other ones I can access from the middle, but I do have to climb under, which is not good when you're a professional cripple. These bits are these points. They're all going to have point motors put in. I just make it so much easier to change the train. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set off the 280 and the E4, get some running shots, and that will be that for this video. And then hopefully you can kind of see how tall the big hill is. It's not massive, there are bigger ones out there, but for my needs and my sort of purposes it's big enough. And also hopefully you can see what I mean about the trees, kind of trees over here, sort of helping to break up the loco and the train a little bit. And so why I want to add some more around here. But that they've got to be here because they can't interfere with me getting engines off the shelf. So as long as they're here on this side of the mound, there won't be a problem with that. Right, so I'm going to get some sort of rolling, some sort of shots of the layout in action, as it were, or just running. And then I will see you in the next video, some point, maybe in April, unless I make a quick one on the end scale and what's happened with that. Although there's nothing exciting happening because I've just been focused on here. Okie dokie, well, see you in the next one.